So we all know that Donald Trump has done a lot of damage in his political career. But this week, he may have done something even his enemies could not have predicted. He may have accidentally handed Canada and 40 other nations the tools to run the global economy without one.
And that's not just a headline, Dave. That is strategy. Right now in Yaoundé, Cameroon, a city most megas couldn't find on a map if they tried, something historic is being assembled. A new trading architecture. And when it's finished, the United States may find itself on the outside looking in.
So today, we're going to explain what just happened, why it matters to your grocery bill and your pension, and why Mark Carney is at the center of it. So stay with us because this one is bigger than it actually sounds.
So the meeting is called MC14, the 14th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization. It's happening right now in Cameroon, and the fact that you probably haven't seen it on the front page of your newspaper or on TV tells you everything about how the mainstream media is sleeping through this story.
Now, here's what you need to know about the WTO in simple terms. After World War II, countries decided that they needed a referee for global trade. Not just deals between two countries, but universal rules. Rules that said you can't slap 25% tariffs on your neighbor's wheat because you're in a bad mood. The referee is the WTO.
So think of it like hockey. You can have the fastest players in the world, but without referees, without someone keeping score, you don't have a game. All you have is one big brawl on ice.
Now, trade rules are important. They decide whether your groceries cost more. They decide whether Canadian exporters can sell into global markets without getting blindsided. They decide whether a political tantrum in Washington can knock around jobs in Hamilton, Halifax, or Vancouver. That is what is at stake in Cameroon this week.
To understand why this meeting matters, you need to understand what Trump broke. The WTO has something called the Appellate Body. Think of it as the Supreme Court of global trade. If your country is being cheated, if someone is breaking the rules, you can take them to the WTO, make your case, and appeal the decision all the way to the top.
Well, you used to be able to.
Right. Starting in his first term, Trump blocked every new appointment to the Appellate Body. He just refused to let the seats be filled. The last sitting judge's term ended in 2019, and the court has been empty ever since.
Just imagine your bank overcharging you every single month. You try to take them to court, but every time a judge retires, someone in Washington vetoes the replacement. After enough retirements, the courthouse is locked. The disputes pile up. The bank keeps overcharging because there are no consequences.
So that is what happened to global trade. The rules are still written down, but enforcement is almost non-existent. And when enforcement is shaky, power starts mattering more than principle. For ordinary Canadians, that's a big problem because Canada does not have the biggest military. Canada does not have the biggest economy. Canada does better in a world with rules. Rules that say a mid-sized country has the same legal standing as a superpower. Without those rules, every trade fight comes down to who can throw the bigger tariff. And our neighbor is very, very, very good at throwing tariffs lately.
Which brings us back to Cameroon. Because what is happening at MC14 is a two-track strategy. Track 1. Can we fix the WTO? Can we restore the referee? Can we get the dispute settlement system working again? Maybe.
Track 2, and this is the one that matters, is the question nobody is saying out loud, but everyone is thinking. What if we cannot fix it? What do we build instead?
And the answer is already taking shape. On one side, you have the European Union. On the other side, you have the CPTPP. That's a mouthful. The countries are Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Chile, Peru, Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and now the United Kingdom. Together, those two blocs account for 32% of global GDP and 37% of all world trade.
So let's put that into perspective. If you took every product, every service, every digital transaction flowing through every economy on Earth, more than a third of that would move through this coalition. Now, that's not just a Tuesday night book club, people. That is a protest letter. That is a parallel economy.
But here's the thing the media is not telling you. The EU and the CPTPP already officially launched a trade and investment dialogue in November 2025. It just never made any headlines. So now what Carney's doing is he is adding urgency, political weight, and a very clear message. Canada is ready to move faster, and Canada, they want to be the bridge between these two blocs.
Yeah, Reuters confirmed it in January. Prime Minister Carney said it himself in February, and he wasn't posturing, he was positioning.
Now, one of the big fights at the MC14 is something called the e-commerce moratorium. We know, sounds dry enough to cure insomnia, but stay with us because this part directly affects what you pay for software, streaming, and your online banking.
The e-commerce moratorium is the rule that says countries cannot put customs duties on digital products crossing borders. That's software, streamed content data. Every time you use Netflix, or your accountant files your taxes through a cloud system in another country, or your retirement fund manager runs transactions through an international platform, data is crossing a border. This moratorium says nobody gets to charge customs on those trades.
Now, Britain wants to make that rule permanent, but India is actually blocking it.
And if it disappears, and countries start putting toll booths on the digital economy, well, that ripples into higher software costs, messier cloud services, and pricier tools for every business that runs any part of its operation online. It is like trying to run Netflix, Shopify, and half of the Canadian banking system through a customs booth. It just doesn't work.
No, now, here's the Canada-specific story inside this global one. Canada, we know, is in the CPTPP. Canada has deep ties to the EU, and that puts Canada in an almost unique position as the bridge between two of the largest trading blocs on the planet.
Now, here's an analogy to think about. Think back to when you were buying your first house. The bank had all the power. The interest rate, what was ever the bank said it was. But what if you joined a credit union? What if you and 100 other families pooled resources and negotiated together? Well, suddenly, the bank isn't so powerful and is competing for your business instead of setting the terms.
And that is what this coalition is doing to the United States on the global stage. When 40 nations representing a third of the world economy build their own legal system, their own digital trade rules, their own supply chain arrangements, well, Washington can't just flip the table and walk away. Why? Well, because the table no longer belongs to Washington to flip.
And that gets to the core irony of this whole story. Trump wanted to weaken multilateral trade rules so America could throw its weight around more freely. But the side effect may be that everyone else gets more serious about building a rules-based club that works around America when necessary.
And look at the timing here. Recently, Canada and the EU signed agreements to modernize and strengthen CETA, while Carney set a goal to double Canada's non-US trade within a decade. So this is not just random chatter out there on the internet. It fits a larger Canadian strategy to diversify before Washington's next mood swing becomes an actual recession.
But the clearest line of the week may have come from the WTO chief herself, who basically said that the old world order is gone and nobody should waste time pretending it's coming back. The job now is not restoring some neat old system from a textbook. The job now is figuring out what comes next.
And that's why this EU-CPTPP approach matters. It's not about replacing the WTO overnight. It's about creating a coalition big enough to preserve rules-based trade in the areas where like-minded countries already agree, like digital trade, supply chains, investment facilitation, and more seamless manufacturing rules.
So if you're wondering what Prime Minister Carney's middle power strategy looks like in real life, this is it. It's not a dramatic alliance with marching bands. It's more like building a stronger neighborhood grid while one giant house at the end of the street keeps flicking its own lights on and off and insisting that everyone else is the problem.
So the real test in Cameroon is not whether ministers produce a beautiful communique full of perfectly ironed diplomatic verbs. It's whether they leave with momentum, structure, and enough trust to keep building if Washington keeps obstructing the reform.
Because if they do, then Mark Carney's idea starts looking less like rhetoric and more like architecture. Not Canada bossing the world around, it's Canada helping connect blocs that already want the same stable rules that we do. Open markets and fewer trade shocks generated by one man's campaign rally brain.
And that's probably the funniest part of this entire mess, right? Trump set out to break the rules-based order because he thought it constrained American power. Well, he just may end up as being remembered as the guy who convinced the rest of the trading world to get serious about preserving it without him.
So keep an eye on Yaoundé. It may not look dramatic on television. There aren't any tanks or missiles. There's no men pointing at maps or signing with Sharpies. It's just trade ministers, draft texts, and a fight over rules. But sometimes that is where the future actually gets decided.
Now, we want to hear from you as always. Do you believe a 40-nation coalition representing a third of the global economy can actually function without the United States? Or is America's economic weight just too large to root around? Let us know below because we'd love to hear from you and hear your opinions.
And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and share it with a friend because we need to beat that algorithm and get the word out there that the mainstream media isn't telling you about.
And if you want to support this channel, check the link in the pinned comment as well for our merch store. You can wear one of these beautiful things here, or you can join the A-Team here on YouTube. Anyway, it helps keep this channel independent and keeps us going.
Thanks for watching, everyone, and we shall see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.